Hey everyone, this is Christopher Luxon, the former CEO of Air New Zealand.
This is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire.
This is Tracy Ibarra. I'm in Executive Solutions at Dell Technologies.
This is Travis Chappell, founder of Build Your Network. If you are wanting to learn how to embrace change,
To navigate through disruption as a leader,
Then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast.
The Leadership is Changing podcast.
the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend,
my very good friend, Denis Giannoutsos.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsos.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world, and I want to welcome you to this Ask Denis episode, which is a freestyle episode where I'm asked a question by our listeners, where I share my thoughts, insights, and experiences from working with many leaders around the globe. Hey, it's been a big year for us this year, and welcome to today's episode. You know, we've had a lot of ambiguity, uncertainty, and unfamiliar. The unfamiliar territory, and a lot of this of what we've been experiencing this last year has not been experienced by this generation or other generations. That it's been experienced and the way it is and the way it's going and where we're going with things going forward, we're not sure. And there's been a lot of that ambiguity, uncertainty, and so forth. So how should we think about doing business going forward? How should we lead in a disruptive world? We know one thing that is constant, and that is change. Change is definitely constant, and it's the one thing that is being constant for us. In particular, we have seen that emphasized, accelerated even more so in this last year in particular. So how does a CEO, leader, and entrepreneur now look to succeed in a disruptive world? Well, these are all really interesting questions that I want to cover off with you today, team. And just also want to remind you about the Facebook group, Leadership is Changing. It's a fantastic topic that we've got here. So relevant that if you want to join that group, just go ahead and join it. Join the community. Go and be part of the tribe. And love to see you join that community with us. So how does a CEO, leader, and entrepreneur now look to succeed in a disruptive world? Well, it's an interesting question. So I look at it and I go, you know what? There's actually 5 areas to look at. I'm going to go through those 5 different key areas with you today. But you know what? It's also in addition to the business and industry leadership. We're going to be talking about that as a whole because you're going to have to take that bigger picture into mind. Into our thoughts, into what we do and our action, everything has to be a bigger picture. And it's all about the business and industry and the leadership within that and what we're talking about. You see, a lot of leaders today, they need to understand where their business is and where they're at. You know, are they in the right business? Do they have the right organization structure? And do they have the right leadership team in place to help that business move forward? So let's get into the 5 key areas, and I'm going to encourage you to take notes as we're going through this today. So number 1, authentic transparency. Now, people are looking for this more and more. In fact, they're demanding it more from leaders today. They want leaders to be authentic. They want them to be transparent. And I keep hearing it within the interviews that I'm doing here on this podcast, Leadership is Changing, that people keep talking about leaders need to be authentic. They need to be transparent. People want to be heard, and the leaders need to be there to listen to them. You see, our employees, our customers, our stakeholders, they all ask questions. And sometimes a leader may not know the answer to the questions, especially in times like now, because there is so much ambiguity, so much uncertainty and unfamiliar territory. We're not sure about things. We're not sure where things are going. And so people are asking us questions because you see, employees, customers, stakeholders, they're looking for somebody to lead. They're looking for a rock. They're looking for somebody who's strong and stable. And that's why they're asking questions. And so when we don't know the answer in these uncertain times, don't make up the answer. Because if you try and make up the answer while you're being asked that question, people are going to see it right through you. They're not stupid. They can see, they can tell whether you're being authentic and transparent with them. The next thing in this area here would be tell them that you don't know, and you're going to go away and you're going to find out, and you're going to go back to them. Now, the key here, though, team, is make sure you do go back to them, because there's many leaders that I've seen that have talked about it. They've gone, yes, I don't know, but I'm going to come back to you, and they've never gone back. Their whole trust and credibility goes straight out the window. The last point I would make under this authentic transparency side of things is about making decisions. Take a stance. Make a decision. Even if it's unpopular, at least you've made a decision. Then you can adapt. But don't be wish-washy. Make sure you understand where you are and where you stand and what your stance is, and you know where you're going, where you want the organization to go, because that's what people are looking for. We're looking for authentic transparency. Number 2 is what I call flexibility, adaptability. So during these times of uncertainty, the business and organizations and leaders, they need to be flexible. They need to be adaptable. And let's look at who have actually done that. Because as we went through the ambiguity, the uncertainty, lockdowns, as we called it, and so forth, those who stood up as leaders, now they may not have been the leader, they may not have had the title, but there were people who stood up. Those who stood up, whether it be an individual, a team, an organization, a business, an industry, they're the ones who did really well. Today, some businesses are booming, exploding, exponential growth is happening for them, while at the same time, other businesses are going bankrupt. Now, this happens all the time. However, when it comes to times like this in a pandemic, this is when innovation, business ideas, new businesses, this is where they're all born, from times like this when there is a lot of ambiguity. Why? Because people, leaders, need to be flexible and adaptable. So be flexible in all aspects of your business. That's not just talking about one area. And I'm not talking about being flexible with customers or being flexible with your staff. We're talking about your strategy, the plant equipment you might have, the technology equipment you might have, people within your organization, your products, your customers. You need to be flexible in all aspects of your business. Keep asking yourself the hard questions to make sure that you, your leadership team, and your business is on track at all times. Especially when we're going through periods like this, to be flexible and adaptable, but make sure you're asking yourself those hard questions, the right questions, to make sure that you're on track. And finally, in this area here, I would say trust yourself, back yourself. And being flexible and adaptable, make sure that you are doing that, but then trust yourself and back yourself from doing it, because you know what to do. And if it's not right, you can adapt. If it's not right, you can adjust. Just like in a sailing situation, right? If you're out there sailing on a yacht and the weather changes, the wind changes, you need to trim the sails, or you need to adjust the sails, or you may need to tack and go a different way to adjust to make sure you keep the momentum of the yacht going forward in what you need. So, whatever it is, be flexible and adaptable, trust yourself, and back yourself in those periods of time. So number 1 was talking about authentic transparency. Number 2, flexibility, adaptability. Number 3, team, here it is. Understand your business disruption. That's an interesting one. Many businesses and industries have been changing for many years. It's not just now. They've been changing for many years. But what we're finding is that a lot of this has been the changes speeding up. Technology has caused it to go faster. There's been all sorts of things that have caused things to speed up. But change has been around for many years. And many organizations haven't moved with the times and others have. A great example is Kodak. Kodak actually had a digital camera. Kodak decided not to go down that track. And we know what happened. They got left behind. And so for many businesses and industries, change has been happening. But the key here is to understand what the market needs, wants, or what the gaps are in the market. What's the market asking for? No point in going out there with a product that the market doesn't want. Watch what your competitors are doing. Understand what your competitors are doing, because that's an external factor that you need to keep an eye on. Now, it doesn't mean that's where your total focus is going to be, because you'll miss other things that are happening within your business and outside your business. But keep an eye on what's going on with your competitors. The last piece within this one of understanding your business disruption would be you lead from the front. In other words, you be the market disruptor. You do it. You go ahead and you make it happen. I know from a lot of events that I've done with very senior leaders, we've asked this question many times of these leaders, whereby it's gone along the lines of Apple. Apple being the computer company, the phone, and so forth. I've always asked the question, which is Apple an early or a late adopter? Now, most people think that Apple is an early adopter, where they're the opposite. They're actually a late adopter. They're just very good at marketing. Did they design music? No, but they came out with the iPod. Did they design the phone? No, but they came out with the version that changed the world. See, Apple have come out with things, but they have led the market disruption. If you can lead the market disruption, that's great. That's what you want to do. You want to lead from the front. Sometimes others will do it before us, but we will need to go out and do it again. Because you see, Apple didn't create the phone the first time. They weren't first creating the mobile phone, but they came out. Remember, Blackberries used to be really, really popular, and everyone was doing that. But then the Apple phone came out and just took the market, right? So see if you can lead from the front, be a market disruptor. So number 4, lessons from ambiguity. We never stop learning. It doesn't matter what level of an organization, a business that you are, whatever level you are, that level, you will always learn things going forward. People have left school, and when they left school, they threw their books away and go, so glad now that I've finished all that learning stuff. Now I can get on with life. But what they don't know is that life's got more lessons for them. And they certainly learn about that pretty quickly. Constantly learning is a good thing. And if you aren't learning from these lessons, then it's a wasted opportunity. Always be open to reflect and learn about those lessons. Do something with your lessons. In other words, you learn from them, so it's not a wasted opportunity, but also share it with others to help others as well learn. And then finally, I would say here is use the lessons as a platform for you to accelerate. So in other words, you're not going to go backwards. You're going to learn from the scenario, but it's a platform for you to step up to go on and accelerate from. And so I would highly recommend that you do that and look at doing that for sure. So number 4 was lessons from ambiguity. Here it is, team. Number 5, execution. Do what you can today. Many leaders, organizations think they have a great strategy, goals, sales, products, services, etc. At the end of the day, if you can't deliver or execute, then you're going to be dead in the water, as they say. So what do you need to do? Do what you can today, even if it's not perfect. Just get it done, even if it's not perfect. The next thing I would say is that the right execution and action is key. And finally, I would say here that being consistent and executing well will set you up for massive success in the future. I always talk about this, the difference between sales and delivery, and it's quite an interesting thing here because sales may be able to get our foot in the door and sell something, But if delivery don't follow through and deliver it well and execute well, you won't get another sale. If delivery, execute well and do it very well, you will sell more products and services into that organization. So at the end of the day here, make sure that you execute. Do what you can today. Do not delay. Just get on with it. So in summary, team, I want to talk to you about how do we succeed in a disruptive world. Understand that there are things that are out of your control. Focus on what you can control. And once again, there are 5 key areas to focus on to help you succeed in a disruptive world. Number 1, authentic transparency. Number 2, flexibility and adaptability. Number 3, understand your business disruption. Number 4, lessons from ambiguity. Number 5, execution. Do what you can today. Hey, listeners, feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk through any of these kind of things for you. Because you see, how you can succeed in a disruptive world is really important. Now, for a lot of people, they just need to sometimes talk with somebody else, talk through things. Maybe it's to help you set up for your next year, to help you set up for success. Or maybe it's to help you go to a new level. For some of you, you might be thinking about starting a business. So I get to work with a lot of leaders about going to another level within their organization or in another organization. Or they're thinking about a total career change in the sense that they want to now go and start a business and leave possibly the corporate world or anything else that they're doing today. If you need help around that space, feel free to reach out to me anytime. In the show notes, you'll see there's my email address. I'm about to say what it is very soon. Feel free to send me an email. Send me a message on social media privately, or go to my website, leadingchangepartners.com, and you can actually go into the contact and make contact with me there. Listeners, it's always great to have you here with me on the show. Once again, join the Facebook group, Leadership is Changing. Love to see you there in that community. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. So look out for the episodes as they're being released. Download them, have a listen, put a review and a rating, share them with your friends, your network, your family. If there's any feedback you'd like to give me on the show, or if there's a question you'd like to ask me, for me to ask my guests as I interview them, or if you have a question for me on the Ask Denis episode, feel free to send me an email on dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. Listeners, it's always a pleasure, as I said, to have you here with me on the show. Thanks for tuning in today. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.